Okay, cool. Well, welcome to the breakout session, everyone. I guess let's just get started. It's our understanding that people are going to be jumping in and out, so that's cool. We'll start with some introductions, I guess, for us that are able to speak. That's me and Heather. So I'm Peter. It's very nice to meet you all, to have the chance to speak to you today about making your business case. I am a value consultant at Staffbase. So I help our prospects and our customers to identify and articulate the value of their communications projects. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. I'm Heather. I'm head of customer success management for the US region. So I lead the customer success department and make sure our customers are reaching success.
Cool. So you've decided to bring a new platform into your organization. It's our experience that probably you fall into one or maybe more of these camps. And I don't know if the poll is up yet, but I did convert this into a poll. So maybe that will show up at some point along the way. The camps are in the top left, on a boat. So this is the situation where you've got the money, you already have your own departmental budget, or you're buddies with the CHRO, and this is already allocated. Um, the top right, this is the camp of the simple replacement. So you already know that you're sunsetting something, you've got some expensive ticket item that you expect you'll be able to just swap costs for the new project that you want to bring in. Bottom left, this is pass the plate. So you're going to need help. And so you're thinking you're going to get that help from other departments, perhaps. So you're passing the plate around to your colleagues. And the bottom right is the mother may I. You're going to need the CEO or your business unit general manager to, allocate some special funding for this. And maybe it's a combination of these. In any case, especially now, what we're seeing is that it's going to the C-suite for approval. Even if you're on a boat, you can still expect that you're going to have that meeting where you're talking to leadership about what it is that you want to do. And this is about more than money. Communication is a core leadership issue and a reflection of leadership. And so we are certainly seeing that there's more scrutiny than ever under the pandemic conditions. And this is our core message. What we're going to talk about today is you can do it. You can get there, especially with a little help from your friends. And whether your audience is the head of comms, the CHRO, the CIO, the CEO, these keys to persuasion can really help. So it's not that you don't matter, but when you want to influence something, making it about them is an absolute secret. And so figuring out what are your leaders already talking about and what are the initiatives that are already happening could be a really important aspect of making your case. And these initiatives could be leadership and brand initiatives, like returning to steadier times with regard to communication, safety, labor, getting control in a new emergency, or building resiliency. They could be leadership initiatives like restoring or repairing, establishing new leaders, establishing visionary leadership and where are we going, or it could be branding initiatives like restoring or repairing a brand, acquiring or divesting, innovating or leading with the brand, and so on. How does the CEO establish leadership in tough times? How do leaders do this? It's by being front and center. So this is certainly a great source, we think, of ongoing conversations that you might be able to tap into when you're looking to influence those stakeholders and sponsors. These could also be workforce initiatives. So maybe it's stopping the bleeding, staying at the top of your employer brand, attracting millennials. Or maybe it's about a return to former leanness or better managing the productivity overwhelm that everybody feels these days. Or maybe it's a future of work or digital transformation conversation. And finally, it could be cost and return initiatives like replacing an unreasonable expense or making one investment instead of two. It could be a foundation for future expense removal. Um, or this other category, in a minority of projects, I would say we see it sometimes comes into play that there's some other investment the company has made. Um, they've gone to build out resource center for employees, but nobody accesses it, nobody uses it, and so this return on other investments can be about helping establish access and helping drive utilization to some other and therefore drive return to another project, and you can bring that into the case for your project. So that could be capturing lost value, realizing the upside of a tool or a program, or making a foundation for concurrent or future investments. Okay, so you've identified this ongoing conversation, and uh, we think identifying the pain is another important aspect of of persuasion. Especially in this era of fake news, people may question the reality of many things. But as we know from psychology, the one thing that humans don't question is the reality of their own pain. So, what is the personal pain that you think this party might be going through? What's the organizational pain? These are great things to think about as you tell your story. And after you've done that, showing the promised land. So, paint them a picture. Um, is the pain that they weren't able to reach the workforce with a critical crisis communication before? And maybe you can show them how next time it could be different, like this COVID push notification GIF that you're seeing on the left. Next time we'd be able to send this out, and we could get acknowledgments on an article that we sent out, and so on. Sharon, I'm not sure if the breakout sessions are also being recorded. Heather, do you know?
They should definitely be recorded.
Okay, cool. All right, so paint them that picture. Um, And now I'll pass it to Heather to say a few words about metrics.
Sure. Surveys first and then metrics. So I think
Oh, and
that,
surveys. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, so using surveys and test groups can definitely build a ton of momentum for the long-term success. And it's really important to think about running surveys and test groups, like even within the buying process. So you can get a test application in your hands before you sign on the dotted line and run these surveys and test groups. It's important to do it in the buying process. It's super important to do it in the implementation process, sort of like a UAT testing. So that's user acceptance testing prior to launching the app to make sure that you're going to get that long-term success. I mean, buying process can be really long and arduous. Implementation can be super long and arduous. They're each kind of their own separate journeys. And then launch is like the third separate journey. And then the long-term success is the fourth separate journey. So you think in your mind all of these really complex journeys you're going on, you don't want to fall flat at the end. So running surveys and getting test groups in the app is a really good way to promote that long-term success. And you want to make sure that you're reaching your target audience with super engaging and valuable content and resources that speak to who they are, like within your company. One thing we talk about is personas, which are basically like target groups. They're different types of employees. They sit in different locations, different departments. It could be the machine operator, the plant manager, the engineer, the administrator. And each of these types of personas have different needs and goals and frustrations, and they want different things out of life and out of, their job and their careers and things like that. So knowing this and knowing the content within those target groups or their personas can really help you again with the long-term success. And you do this by having test groups, different locations, different departments, different job roles, and surveys. Another huge benefit is getting feedback prior to signing on the dotted line or prior to launch. You want to know how your employees feel about introducing this mobile app into your environment, both from a UX, so from a user experience standpoint, and from a UI, a user interface standpoint. So is the app easy to navigate? Can they find the content that they're looking for? Is there content in the app that they're actually interested in? So this is what you want to be doing so you can iterate and improve on kind of the long-term strategy of how you're going to build success with the app. And then also with the test users and early surveys and things like that, you get your early adopters and your early ambassadors. And they can really help promote, like locally promote the app prior to launch and get excitement and momentum going. Um, during launch, pre-launch, post-launch, and beyond, to just, again, to continue to build on that adoption and success of rolling out the tool. So yes, I would say using surveys and test groups, two very important aspects of the long-term success of the mobile app within your kind of tooling environment of your company.
Cool. Thanks, Heather.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows, the polls are now live. So if you want to pop over to the polls and let us know what's going on in your world, that would be great. A few words about budgeting. Of course, you're thinking about software costs, but don't forget others you may need or may want to plan for. Some providers, like Staffbase is one of them, offer launch support and customer success expertise, folks like Heather who help you stand up your project and do ongoing success. But you still, depending on your situation, might want or need an agency or a consultancy to help you with different aspects of your launch. Your IT group will be needed for security evaluation, setting up user management, and so on. You may not have an easy time talking to your IT group. Sometimes there's a great relationship between comms and IT, sometimes not so much in our experience. But we suggest starting this conversation with them sooner rather than later. And your vendors and partners should be able to help with that conversation. Certainly, it's one that we are very used to. What will your content creation look like? Different companies have different cultures and different setups in terms of who will contribute content and so on. Think through and budget accordingly for that. And again, your vendors and partners should be able to help. And I'll pass it again to Heather to talk about metrics and success.
Sure. Thanks, Peter. So I think it's first really important to note that success looks much different from company to company. So it's like really, really important in the buying process, before the buying process even, to define what success looks like for you, for your company, and especially for your stakeholders. You want to make sure you're always on the same page. So when you are measuring and you're looking at, where your adoption is, you feel that you're successful and you're moving towards success. So one metric that we look at is adoption and registration. I think that's the most obvious metric, and that's super important, high-level metric. That's how many of your employees are downloading and logging in to the app. And again, that's like the highest level. When you roll out any product, you're going to be looking at your adoption metric. But there's a couple other really important metrics you need to look at because, if you have 5,000 employees and they all register, within the first 2 weeks of launch, and then they never come back to the app, like, would you consider that a success? Probably not. So you want to make sure you're looking at kind of more detailed metrics further down. And one is the weekly and the monthly activity or usage. And these are users who are coming back on a consistent basis. So yes, you of course want your users to register, but you want to make sure that they're coming back and looking at the content and engaging with the content, like liking it, commenting on it, sharing it. And the way that you do this is make sure you're continuously keeping your content up to date and fresh and adding new use cases to the app. Um, Another important metric is readership. So this is where you can track and focus on the content that's really working for you, that's most engaging, and maybe take out the content that isn't being read. You definitely don't want to waste your time on pushing out a lot of content that's not being read. In my time in Staffbase, I have not met a single app manager or app administrator whose sole purpose 40 hours a week is to only push content into the app. Everybody has a full-time job. This is just one of the tasks that you're doing. So it's really important you're focusing on the stuff that's actually getting read and engaged with. So readership is certainly important, which also brings next to your stakeholder initiative metrics. So these are like your crisis communication, your COVID communication, your CEO blog, your leadership letters, your benefits open enrollment. Chances are your boss's boss, probably maybe even your boss's boss is going to be looking for these metrics, especially because it's coming from the top down. I hear from a lot of current customers that the reason that they came to Staffbase or bought a mobile app in the first place is to help create a culture where employees know what's going on from the top down. They know the strategies from the leadership, and then they also felt heard, from the bottom up. So pushing out these types of initiatives and letting users engage with them, letting them engage with the leadership, comment on their feelings on open enrollment and things like that. By pushing it out and measuring it, measuring the consumption of the content, you can push towards a more transparent, open, communicative culture at work. So these are just some of the metrics we look at. Of course, there's a whole more load of metrics customer success managers can show customers and things like that.
Maybe quickly, Heather, if
Yeah.
it could give us a feeling like just for people that don't know, like what is a good adoption number? What's a good weekly, monthly usage number at a manufacturing company?
Sure. So we like to see like 60 to 70% adoption. That's what we would define as success, but that's, it's not specific to manufacturing. It's just kind of like a baseline of success. It definitely differs company to company. I've had clients or customers who thought 20% adoption was perfectly fine for them, knowing their user group and their target audience and their personas. Manufacturers a lot of times are blue collar workers. They might have flip phones. They might not be comfortable adopting new technology. So it kind of, again, it depends on the company and what you look at and how you know your audience and what's successful. But generally, I would say an adoption of 60 to 70% is really awesome. Monthly, weekly activity, anywhere from like 30 to 50% is really good. And we also have this, what we call like the aha moment, which is a point in time and percentage where we deem you have a really good chance of having really long-term success, which we say if you can get 30% activity by your third month of launching, you have a really great chance of engaging and continuing that like long-term success beyond, just the first year of rolling it out.
Get the snowball started.
Exactly, exactly. Having a super strong marketing launch plan will go a very long way for long-term success. It's really important that you get a good number of people in at the initial launch and build up that excitement so you can build on it and not have to think about maybe relaunching or something because you didn't get the numbers that you wanted right away.
Cool. Thanks, Heather. Uh, now,
Uh, so,
now I guess.
let
Oh, go
me,
ahead.
Heather Beal just asked the question, what about employees who are reluctant to adopt technology? How can you encourage them or reach them uniquely? This is definitely a topic that I see very frequently in manufacturing. We like to have, or we like to tell our customers that they need like the local ambassadors. Part of that launch plan or communication strategy can have, plant managers on site helping users download the app, telling them why they should download the app. You can only get this information if you go into the app. Sometimes that hands-on help at the initial launch goes a very long way. So that's one way. Of course, just the messaging around like what are the benefits of the app. Like it's not to track what you're doing day to day. It's not, to make sure you're working when you're not supposed to be, looking at your phone and things like that. It's the messaging of how hugely beneficial adding this mobile app will be, and it's fixing, XYZ problems that we've identified, through surveys, we'll say. Um, what, well, from your customer experience, what do you experience? Users are really excited at the beginning, then after 2 months, the usage goes down. You need to do a new activation campaign. Yeah, so I mean, the initial launch is when most people are really excited. And yes, it can definitely drop off. That's why we say you need to be continuously updating content. So if you have resources in the app, so HR information, policy information, security protocols, and things like that, chances are you're not updating them every week, but you do have the news aspect. So you want to be creating a lot of engaging content, local news content. Local news content is generally like a really great push for continuous engagement. So that could be employees sharing stories about other employees, employees sharing their own stories, user submitted content, and things like that. Social walls, there's a lot of different ways that you can continuously engage the users, and then of course keep pushing and keep promoting. When you launch the product, you might have a lot of marketing materials up. You can think about refreshing those marketing materials, and again, just using those local ambassadors to continuously push the benefits of logging in and reading the content. Also, you can think about removing some of the other areas in which they can find that content. So of course, if they can find it somewhere else and they always know that they can find it there, they're probably not going to think to go to the app at first. So you can think about taking out those other outlets and just funneling everything through the app, again, to get people to get into the app. Concerns about tracking and other paranoia. Yeah, that's always going to be a concern with everybody, I think. I have customers who their metric of success was 100% adoption, which is almost nearly impossible to get 100% of all employees into the app. So you're always going to have like detractors who say, I don't care how many times you tell me you're not tracking me, I'm just never going to log in. That does happen. I've talked to customers who have employees like that, and I'll say it kind of is what it is. Sometimes you're just never going to reach them. But for the rest of the employees, it's just, again, just the messaging of the benefits, the reiteration of it's not being used for tracking. Like it's really a great benefit for you to download the app. So I hope that kind of answered your question. Employee sharing, moderating for negative content. We definitely have a few different ways, like functionality wise, in terms of moderating content. You can, of course, use maybe a form and have users submit that way, and have it moderated in such a way. I will tell you from my experience, talking to customers who have these concerns, and a lot of them do, not just in manufacturing, of course, in any industry, is that the app is not promoting negative feedback and negative commentary by your employees. It's just another communication tool. So if your employees feel that they need to publicly announce very negative things about how they feel about their management, about their leadership, about their company on their app, it's their own livelihood that is in trouble. The app, again, is just a tool to help spread the communication and get everybody kind of aligned on the same page. And a lot of times when employees are leaving bad comments or negative feedback and things like that, usually it would entail like an offline conversation. There's probably something going on beyond, the mobile app and a communication tool that the employee is feeling some type of way about. So there is definitely ways you can moderate content, but again, employees know it's a work tool. So if they want to keep their job and not create any friction, chances are they're not going to leave a lot of negative feedback. And again, you're going to have one or two, a handful of employees who might. But again, it's not so much the mobile app that's creating like a culture of negative feedback. It's really probably something behind the scenes. We found it's best if the sharing is self-policed, to be honest. Yes, I would agree with that, says Janice.
Cool. Thanks for all the questions and comments, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we can talk a bit about brass tacks. We're going to go through the underlying logic of the most common ROI cases together with some rough benchmarks for you all. And our first suggestion, of course, is as you think about these, make sure that you align these calculations to these initiatives that your sponsors care about. At a high level, the most common ROI cases fall into direct cost savings, attraction, retention, engagement, productivity, and then increased revenue and profitability. So let's look at a few sides to this direct cost replacement. This is probably my favorite and a favorite of a lot of projects that I've been on because the logic is so clear and everyone seems to get it, and it's not like a big hurdle for people to understand. You know, we have this, so now that we don't have to spend the money that we're spending on that anymore. Marketing and communications is one category that might even pay for the entire project, depending on your situation. We've laid out here some of the ones that we've come across with a rough magnitude of what you might see. Many of these have their own line items underneath, like intranet costs, for example, could include further development costs, hosting costs, application management costs, upgrade costs, training and enablement. The list goes on. Programs and services costs, these have at least two sides to them. So it could be a current or historical cost replacement where you're able to digitize an existing program or service and consolidate costs, or it could be a future cost replacement. So you're about to roll out a new program or a new service, and it turns out that you can use this new communications platform to help defray those upcoming costs. And finally, risk reduction. This is different for every business, but in manufacturing, we see that safety is super important. And because communication is an essential ingredient to safety operations, this could be worth a lot. Okay, so attraction, retention, and engagement cases. A lot of the underlying logic for these cases is based on employee experience, sort of the theory behind employee experience, which comes out of the customer experience world. So it's like in the CX world, you have customer touch points along the journey, and you look at optimizing those touch points. In a similar way, we can look at the employee experience touch points in their journey and try to understand what kind of impact these touch points have on their experience and what that means for the business. So the basic formula that you see here on the top on the left is looking at discretionary effort. So if we can increase the employee experience at certain moments of truth, then we can increase engagement, increase that discretionary effort, and therefore have an impact on work productivity. So some examples of touch points that could impact this engagement and the experience at moments of truth. It could be the first week onboarding experience. It could be the TI people found that when a vacation request is disapproved, that has a high impact. It could be contacting a potential mentor. Are they able to do that? What's that experience like? And so what we see is these different components. So whether it comes out in the increased output, or you can measure it in your inclusion index, or a reduction in change-related stress, or unscheduled absenteeism, another important factor for manufacturing companies, this could be worth in the neighborhood of a couple $1,000s per employee per year. And that's based on TI People's research with 500 enterprise companies and looking at these touch points. Intent to join or stay is another side of the attraction, retention, and engagement. Again, based on a similar kind of analysis of these moments of truth. So you see the formula, increase the experience at the moment of truth. We see an increase in the attraction and retention, which there's a lot of costs associated with attraction and retention and work productivity. And so, in this case, it could be touch points like their first experience of the physical or the digital workspace, getting feedback from their manager after their first month. These are the kinds of moments that can really be bearing on attraction and retention. And based on this analysis, whether from your employer brand differentiation, looking at turnover, looking at advocacy, measuring the scores in your engagement surveys and NPS, this also could be worth a couple of $1,000s per employee per year based on the analysis. And now we'll look at a few of these productivity cases as well. And again, I think the idea here is to adapt this formula and adapt this argumentation into your world and into those initiatives that matter for your stakeholders. So in this case, we look at work productivity. So that's, and we take the angle of the manager time saved. So this is like a reduction in wasted time and support staff time that's spent on HR. You could see this through these specific touch points of like decreasing time to productivity with a streamlined automated onboarding journey. Or you could have time savings, for example, that you measure or estimate from easily finding information in a new world versus today it might be very difficult or take a long time, be very frustrating to find information, and that has an impact on productivity. So when we say effortless experience, that's what we mean. Increase the effortless experience. That means less time spent by managers, less time by support staff, increase in the adoption of IT systems, and ultimately an impact on productivity and efficiency. And so they took a few assumptions in this research, in this study that they did around the manager hourly cost and the amount of time savings that they'd be able to get in an average company across these 500 with a span of control of 1 to 10. So your situation could be somewhat different, but with these benchmarks in place, it's could be up to a couple $1,000s again per manager per year that it could be worth in your time savings. And then looking at the employee side, you see the assumptions are somewhat different. The hourly costs are somewhat lower. They found that the time savings was even a little bit less, maybe because they have less responsibilities for paperwork and things like this. But again, end user adoption of IT systems, reduction in distracted workers, and then in the touchpoint side, it could be that you're digitizing your sick notices and your leave requests, and that's where you're getting the time savings. You're digitizing your microprocesses, like ordering your work clothes or appointments for a health checkup, and decreasing work-family conflict by having clear communications. And this could be worth, again, based on this analysis and these benchmarks, $1,500 per employee per year. And yes, Emma, I think we'll be sending these out after the session. And in any case, we can follow up separately with you, and I can certainly send them to you. Cool. So that's what we had planned to present for today's session. The takeaway is we really believe and we see that you can do it, even in an environment like the one that we face. There are a lot of powerful underlying business logic behind a project like this one. Creates tremendous value. Again and again, we see with our customers unexpected surprise sources of value that they didn't even plan for ahead of time. So, marshal that internal support, think through your logistics, and make that case a no-brainer. Yeah, and that's what we've got. I would be happy to receive any questions you might have. Heather and I have been in this space for a few years together, so certainly can answer whatever might come up. And I'll just remind participants again of the polls if you haven't had the chance to participate in the polls.
Emma is asking, do you have any retail specific examples? Like customers or examples of, maybe you can give me a little more detail.
Oh yeah. So it turns out retail is one of the most successful industries. So we serve a lot of these, especially non-desk industries, and of course, retail is one of the major ones. Manufacturing is another. Retail has some outstanding success numbers that we have helped prospects to make cases for and successfully get through. Um, so yeah, building business cases for the retailers, it's a friendly industry for that in the sense that as you say, the budgets are tight, but it's friendly in the sense that you can really thoroughly demonstrate success in a retail environment and give your leadership team a lot of confidence that if they decide the investment's worth it, there's a path, there's a clear way that they'll be able to get the readership numbers, get the adoption numbers that they're looking for. I'm trying to remember because I was looking at this just a few weeks ago. I was working on a retail project, and I think the average adoption rate, looking at all of our current retail customers, I'm not kidding, was 80%. So it's really an outstanding use case for this kind of, especially mobile-driven, mobile-first technology. So whatever that internal conversation is that's happening, that's really the case for getting through those tight budgets. Is you've got to participate in what people already care about, but you will be able to show powerfully that there's a path for this. There's a company just like yours who's done it, and we can even connect you to our customers in retail who have done it and help you make that case. So yeah, I think retail's a really good place to be making it from. Although I certainly appreciate the challenge of the tight budgets, especially now with the impact to retail. Cool. Any other questions? When your management team doesn't even value team meetings, yeah. Uh, this this is really thank you, Heather. This is really why we opened up with with talking about this concept of joining the conversation that's already happening is because this is so hard. Convincing someone that doesn't see the value of team meetings on any of the like normal ways that someone who does get it around communications would just be like they get it. Um, that's really hard. So my suggestion in a situation like that is to start first with like what does your management team value? Um, because they definitely value something. They definitely care about something. And it's okay, so it could be money in. And then it's thinking about, all right, they care about money in. How could a project like this influence the top line? Yeah, unfortunately, that's we do see that from management teams that HR or employee experience is just considered a line item cost, doesn't contribute to the top line at all. Yeah. So definitely appreciate the challenge. But I think, yeah, it's about to the extent possible connecting to those things that they care about. And you would be surprised. There are some really cool case studies like that we've discovered with our customers. Like it wasn't manufacturing, but we had a customer who I'll give you two examples where it sort of influenced very clearly their top and bottom line costs. One is this company called Ottenzam. They're like a cleaning company, so they offer like corporate cleaning services. And they when they launched the app, they found that they were able to get their employees who are out actually cleaning, noticing when there was like an expansion opportunity in the account and able to communicate about it clearly through the communications platform. And they're able to get increase to their top line through um, getting the sales team involved. Hey, our cleaner was in your building and noticed that floor number 8 is like not being cleaned. Is that something you'd like us to add into the services agreement? And they saw an increase to the top line there. And another surprise case was with technicians where they had a social wall that turned into like a basically an internal help desk. And all of a sudden, these technicians, this was T-Mobile, T-Systems, where they're going to people's houses and they're working on internet routers and things like this. They encounter a problem. They're able to get an answer from their colleagues on the social wall way faster, so they could even get the answer while they're still on site. And this had a big operational impact for them. So the stories are there, the cases are there. But yeah, I definitely appreciate how tricky it can be. Heather, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say, just reiterating to what Peter said, is you need to kind of get on their level or see them eye to eye in terms of like what they value, what's important to them. It certainly can be the bottom line, money in. Saving time is saving money. So using the tool to communicate quickly on, especially in manufacturing, everybody's on the floor. Um, there might be a crisis, something might break. They need even like policies, security procedures and things like that. You can update them in real time and save a lot of time. So as you're saving a lot of time, you're saving a lot of money. What you could have previously been printing on paper and going around the floor and taping up. Now you're saving time on not doing that. You're saving money on not printing and you're saving trees. So it's really about just understanding what your leadership or stakeholders, what's important to them. It might not be a one-to-one equation. So they think HR is an overhead. They don't understand the value of internal communications, but you can always tie that in to something that they do find very valuable. And um, communicating in real time and updating resources in real time is saving you real time and real money. So that's one way you can kind of make a connection, is just trying to, again, what Peter said, like get on their level, see what's important to them. And it might not be always a really clear line from what you're doing and what they're doing, but chances are if you spend enough time thinking about it, you can maybe get a dotted line across and show them that it is quite valuable um, for your organization.
Cool. Well, thanks for the questions, Heather, and thank you for the answers, Heather. Um, it's been fun getting the chance to speak to you all and to have a bit of discussion around this. Please follow up with us. If you have questions for me, you can reach me at peter@staffbase.com. And yeah, I think we're going to send around the presentation afterward. And Emma, I'll follow up with you too about business cases for retail. Um, yeah, and I guess everybody take a break from all the Zoom, take a walk, and take care.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good rest of the conference.